The story of the C&O Canal begins long before the construction started in 1828. It runs along the Potomac River, which is an area that is filled with layer upon layer of American history. The earliest settlers dreamed of finding a waterway to take them from the Atlantic Ocean inland. In 1748, the Ohio Company unsuccessfully attempted a trade route up the Potomac and across the Appalachians to the Ohio River. Around that same time, a young George Washington saw firsthand the possibilities.
In 1753, George Washington journeyed up the Potomac River on the first of what was to be many trips across the mountains to the Ohio Valley. This is where he first began to see the possibilities of a trans-Appalachian corridor to the Ohio. Unfortunately, the French already had the same idea, and Washington's journey in 1753 was to carry a message asking them to leave the valley to the Ohio Company and to the governor of Virginia. This resulted, of course, in the French and Indian War, which wouldn't conclude for another 10 years. Unfortunately, the French and Indian War was the first of a number of delays that would last for many years before the route to the Ohio was finally completed.
After the Revolutionary War, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and George Washington corresponded on the possibility of making the Potomac navigable.
George Washington's Potomac Company began making the Potomac navigable by clearing some of the river impediments and building skirting canals at critical junctures along the river. There's one here at Seneca, another at Great Falls on the Virginia side that you can still see. But this was only a minor expedient in the end because the river levels continued to change and the flow of the river was so powerful downstream that most of the traffic was only one way. Sometimes people would build boats up in Cumberland only to destroy them when they got to Georgetown to sell them for lumber, and then they'd walk back upstream to complete the journey.
In the 1820s, the success of the Erie Canal spurred on other canal projects, one to the west connecting Pennsylvania and Virginia, as well as one here in the mid-Atlantic states. The C&O Company began work on a canal that was to run from Washington, D.C. along the Potomac and travel more than 300 miles to Pittsburgh. This would be quite an engineering feat.
To be able to float boats on a canal, you have to have a steady supply of water, so the C&O Company built 7 feeder dams along the Potomac River. This is the one at Seneca. This is feeder dam number 2, bringing the water in through this guard lock here, down into the canal and flowing on down to Georgetown. Cumberland is 605 feet above sea level, about 162 miles upstream from here. So the C&O Canal Company had to build 76 lift locks to walk boats all the way up the canal. This is one of them at Seneca, Riley's Lock, about 8 feet in elevation, which enabled the canal boats to proceed on a flat plane up and downstream with very little resistance from the distance traveled uphill. Where the C&O Canal Company came to an intersecting stream like Seneca Creek here, flowing into the Potomac, it had to find a solution to cross the stream to enable the canal boats to pass unimpeded. That solution is called an aqueduct. It's kind of a bridge, but it's filled with water so that the canal boats could proceed through here downstream or upstream. This particular aqueduct is interesting because it has a unique feature. It's a combination of an aqueduct, and at the far end it's a lock, known here as Riley's Lock, with Riley's Lock House, one of the favorite places for the Girl Scouts.
Groundbreaking for the canal occurred on July 4th, 1828. Ironically, it coincided with that of its major rival, the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad.
It was very hard for the C&O Canal to compete with the very inexpensive rail transportation that evolved at the same time as the beginning of the canal. So they eventually just became a coal carrier from Cumberland. They never made it across the mountains to Pittsburgh as had been intended. They also did some very interesting projects involving stone, the very stone that was used to build the canal. This is Seneca red sandstone in this area. A very beautiful stone was used also to build the Smithsonian and was not only quarried right here near the aqueduct, but was brought down to the Smithsonian Works on canal boats.
Here at Seneca, visitors find interesting carvings on the side of the stone.
The Park Service sometimes refers to them as hieroglyphics along the canal, kind of fancifully. Some people have speculated that they're stonemasons' marks. That is, if you were a stonemason, you left your distinctive mark on a stone so that it could be recorded later for payment purposes. But no one's really sure exactly what they were for, or if they were just sort of a hobby on the part of some stonemason.
In the end, the expense of maintaining the canal just couldn't compete with the efficiency of the railroad.
One of the things that worked against the canal was the cost of maintaining it relative to the cost of keeping a railroad repaired. The canal company had to do things like put a bounty on muskrats that used to dig holes in the embankment of the canal. But even more significantly, there was that occasional flood that we know about on the Potomac River, causing damage like what you'll see here at the Seneca Aqueduct. It was the big flood of 1924 that actually did the canal in, when it finally became too expensive to repair and was abandoned for all time.